So here's an example of what we have for fathers' rights advocates out here. I got on this guy's page. He was attacking some woman who said, that only 4% of cases go to trial. And I think I replied to her video or her comment. So this dad is attacking her and saying dads get screwed and get standard visitation. So I got on the page and I said, men, grow some balls and always fight for full custody. So this is what this low IQ Neanderthal who hasn't evolved said. This is what happens. We get all these foolish non-graduates from high school speaking out about fathers' rights. Just because you got injured or you got hurt or you got screwed, all of a sudden you're an expert and you're leading a fathers' rights group. This guy says he's worked with men for a decade. I've worked for men 2.5 times longer than him. This is what he says about me. When I say grow some balls and fight, that hurts somebody's feelings because he probably didn't grow balls and fight the right way. He went to court and bowed down and took it up the rear and laid down like typical cowardly man and was a doormat and got ran over. But these are the idiots that are sitting here speaking out for fathers' rights. He says, so remember, I said, in general, I made a comment on this page. I agreed with what the guy was saying, and I said, men, grow some balls, fight for full custody, stop being sissies and all this other stuff. So he goes, if you're an activist, James, you will not be winning in court. What? What? I'm an activist, so I'm not. So somebody who dealt with the bias of the court system and overcame it can't be an activist? Especially when you're calling out the practicing attorneys and judges. What? What the hell is this retarded idiot saying? These are the numbnuts that are in the fathers' rights movement groups. These are the numbnuts like Eric Carroll from Dad Talk Today. They don't like me saying grow some balls and fight and go for full custody. They'd rather sit in their victimhood and whine and cry and piss and moan about how they're victims. That's what this guy does in the video. We get standard visitation. It's called standard visitation because it's standard visitation. That's utter bullcrap. The guy obviously never read the statutes in his home state. He never read Troxel versus Granville. But he says this Looney Tune bullcrap. It's almost like, oh, you won in court? You can't be one of us victims. We like to curl up in a ball and dry hump each other at fathers' rights movements meetings and whisper sweet nothings in each other's ears and, spoon with each other and just hug and cuddle and affirm one another. I'm somebody who went to court and got blindsided with a temporary restraining order. I beat that. It took a few weeks to beat it. Then I went to family court and got 0 visitation, appealed that decision, and then I got 5 days a week. And then I got the mother found in contempt. The mother thought she could withhold the child from me. And so I would and after that, I've been in and out of court in my own case for twice as long as this PAB punk, gluteus maximus, female dog. He's been an advocate for 10 years. I've been in my own court case for 20 years. Been to the Court of Appeals several times, won 2 times, got a reversal, discretionary review, interlocutory decision, which is harder than an appeal. I've dealt with the bias. I was thrown in jail because I didn't show up at a hearing. I never got served the paperwork. I've been the victim of anti-father bias. This is when you're a feminine, emotional, overly sensitive, thin-skinned little osh of a man. And I come on the page and I say, dude, grow some balls, fight for full custody. And my username is how I got custody. My stupid Down syndrome inflicted gender says, oh my God, you can't get custody as a father. This guy must be a con artist. Or, oh my God, he's telling us to grow some balls. It was so hard for me to fight. You know why it was hard for you to fight? Because you lay down and you arched your back and you stuck your booty in the air so they can ram you up the rectum. You served it up for them. Now, people who actually fight the right way or go all out or do something wrong or their attorneys weren't fighting, I guarantee this guy spent $10,000, $20,000 on an attorney. and just follow, because he's saying standard visitation. That's attorney talk. It's not what the Constitution says, it's not what the law says. This guy doesn't have the balls or wherewithal or initiative to say, let me go look this stuff up myself. The blind leading the blind, following an attorney like a sheep. And then when your low IQ numbnuts decides, wow, I got royally screwed, let me start talking about father's rights. All you talk about is your loser experience. James, if you're an activist, you will not be winning in court. So your little loser group of losers in family court who got defeated, you don't want an activist who started off the same way you did and actually won and overcame. It's almost like you guys got the same demons possessing you of loser victim bitch mentality. You got a loser victim bitch demon on you. And you guys all huddle together, and you don't want to hear it from somebody who won, because I must have got lucky. I must have cheated. I must have whatever. What I did was grow some balls and fought like hell for my kid. And I stumbled across the formula that has worked for hundreds of other guys who got full custody without an attorney, and thousands of others who got 50-50 or fought off restraining orders or did better after they got a hold of me. And I prove it with my winning court orders. And like I showed in another post, my biggest haters, the biggest critics, the most emotionally triggered, overly sensitive reactors who say, you can't be an activist because you would talk loser, hopeless, woe is me, victim biatch mentality like us. You don't sound like one of us. You know, Harriet Tubman, who ran the Underground Railroad, or there's probably a bunch of them, but the most famous Underground Railroad, Harriet Tubman, she freed hundreds and hundreds of slaves, maybe thousands. I don't know the number off the top of my head. But I do remember this quote from her. She said, I would have freed many more slaves if they just knew that they were slaves. Some people grew up on the plantation, were born into it. That's all they knew their whole life. And they didn't realize there's something, the grass is greener on the other side, literally on the other side of the border, going to the north or going to a free state. These guys go into court, they're so delusional, their whole experience. You know what these guys are like? They're like radical feminists. Because radical feminists will grow up and get abused by a woman will get abused by their stepdad. Their crazy mom will let a crazy man into their life and he'll abuse them. And then they'll look at all men the same, and they have this hatred, and they're living out of their wounds. This guy has his mind made up that somebody like me cannot be a winner and an activist. You have to be a loser. You can't overcome anything because we're all losers, and we have the loser mentality, and we have no hope that we could possibly win, and we just want to whine, cry, piss and moan, and we want somebody to cuddle our wound. See, when you get hurt, there's a deep scar and an actual wound in you. And if you're a biatch, you just want somebody to coddle that wound. Real men say, oh my God, watch a David Goggins thing. Or Andrew Tate talks about it. Andrew Tate says he doesn't think there's no such thing as depression. Now, I'm not saying I agree with everything Andrew Tate says. A lot of people might get triggered if I say that. That's because you're a mentally ill biatch and you can't look at a quote or a statement or a fact on a case-by-case basis. You got like Democrat versus Republican, right versus left, women versus men mentality, and it's always a team thing. That makes you a sheep and a little biatch, okay? But one thing Andrew Tate says that makes a lot of sense: depression is a state of mind. There's women who say, I never was postpartum, that's utter bullcrap. And there's women who had a horrible postpartum. But postpartum is just the leading cause of postpartum depression is already being depressed. And your emotions, when you're going through pregnancy, just get amplified because your hormones. So whatever you're going through and who you are, if you're dark and grim and have this hopelessness or depression, then it just gets way worse. So these guys, they're living out of their wound and they can't see anything beyond their wound. So I come by and say, hey, I won, fight like I do and give yourself the best chance and get off your butt and be a warrior and fight. He doesn't like that talk because he'd rather be a bitch and curl up with another man and dry hump and do a train on each other because it feels good to whine, cry, piss, and moan in somebody's comfort. I think it feels better to overcome and go to war.